Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, classmates. So we are the group 3 and our report is all about the issues and challenges in contemporary literature. So first, I'm going to introduce my co-reporters. So first is Mr. Borjos Noel, then myself, Tuat Adeline, then Hindaralaw Anilin, Lagahit Lemuel, Mulyon Robi, and Noya Remark. So what is contemporary literature? So before moving on to the issues about contemporary literature, let's tackle first what is the meaning of this. Okay, so let's move on. So the word contemporary means living, belonging to or in a current in the present. So contemporary literature is defined as literature written after World War II through the current day. So that's from the 1940s until today. So while this is a vague definition, there is not a clear-cut explanation of this concept. The only interpretation by scholars and academics. While there is some disagreement, most agree that contemporary literature is writing completed after the 1940s, so after the World War II. So the literature of the contemporary period not only refers to the quality or style of writing, but also to poetry and prose, so which includes work of fiction such as novels, novellas, essays, and dramatic works. So these are the characteristic of a contemporary literature. So it's reality based. So it's based on the real events. So believable storyline. You can really believe what is written. And then sometimes portraying a harsher reality or degradation of the society. I think there are so many works na in the contemporary style that really based on reality. Just like for example, the essay that we've read during the last term, the I forget. I'm sorry, but I really forgot the title the, of that girl during the Vietnam War. So it's also current and in modern setting. So it's well defined, realistic, it's highly developed and has a strong characteristic. So it's also well structured. So writing is more character driven than plot driven. So these are the genres of the contemporary literature. So first is like novel and poetry. Next is like flash and fiction, short stories, slam poetry, plays, memoir, and autobiographies. So why contemporary literature is important? So it has a very important role because it reflects a society's social and as well political points of view. So it helps them to illuminate the strength or weakness of the society. And also, it helps the readers to develop the rational thinking. So as a reader, it will develop really your rational thinking because you really have to think rationally when you read a book in a contemporary literature. So in contemporary literature, there are actually issues and problems it encounters. So let's tackle about the issues in contemporary literature. So these are the three issues in contemporary literature. First, like women in literature. Next is ethnic in literature. And third is the racism in literature. First, let's tackle about women in literature. So female writers have come to the forefront and provided today's readers with a vast array of ethnic and cultural perspective. The unique voice of female minorities is a common theme in many coming-of-age novels that allows each writer to establish a separate identity for their characters and themselves. So women in modern literature often include strong, independent female juxtaposed by oppressed women to provide example for young female readers and to critique shortcomings of our society. So this is actually becoming very common now. So women have more power, women have a voice and like to stand for themselves. So there are so many famous women authors nowadays, and they really promote um, women. I mean, they really promote how women in the society nowadays and how independent women these days. So next is the ethnic and literature. So ethnic literature, the definition says is literature is like any other except that it contains ethnic reference. So when a reader who are designed as naive, since they are relatively less conscious of the functions of literary forms, encounter ethnic literature, so they respond to the verisimilitude of the narration so completely, they take the literature as an equivalent for life. Next, the last issue is the racism in literature. So racism is a disease of ignorance. It's a horrific part of the society and has reared its ugly head throughout history, and it's continuing to do the same today. So racism comes many shapes and forms, direct towards a variety of cultures. Oftentimes, there are people who see racism as an inspired to write about it. So with the goal in mind to make a difference and change in society's belief. I think we are very familiar, especially right now during the pandemic, diba? Um, Asians really experience racism, especially in the United States, because of course they think that Asians really brought COVID to the world. And even before that, racism is already a problem, especially in the United States. About the black people. There are so many propagandas right now that Black Lives Matter because the black people in the United States have experienced so many bad things. So next, now we're going to talk about the 18 challenges in contemporary literature. So first, number one, literature is language-based and national. So contemporary society is globalizing and polyglot. So, diba, when it comes to literature, it's language-based and national also. So, we're talking about Philippine literature. Let's talk about Asian literature, or we'll talk about English and American literature. So it's actually language-based. But contemporary society is globalizing and polyglot. So when you say polyglot, it's like more than one dialect, like three or more, diba? So you can either like polyglot are those people who can speak like three or more languages. Like for example, French, English, Russian. So and also globalizing because right now we have very easy access to the world. That's why we get to learn. It becoming very easy to learn other people's language. So next, vernacular means of everyday communication. So like cell phones, social networks, streaming video are moving into area where printed text cannot follow. So although for me, or maybe because I'm a little bit older, I still really like to text. I really like to message because when you message, it stays, and there's like evidences on what you said, or because when it comes to streaming videos and also when you talk about streaming videos, or else if it's recorded, then you have evidence. But nowadays, actually, people are, because of the busy life, people wants to communicate through video streaming na. And also, who wants to like to read, di ba it's everything about like nanay mga audiobooks and everything. But for me, I still like to text, you know. Maybe because I'm a traditional person, but I don't really know. Maybe in the younger generation, that's why it's becoming a issue in the contemporary literature. So last, for my report, my last topic is all about the intellectual property system failing. So, because of globalization and because of the internet, everyone have access. So there are times that there are so many people right now who just try to copy everything from the internet. And well, thankfully nowadays there's already intellectual property rights, but still there are some work of literature of other famous authors that's been copied by other people. So thankfully naman tayo mga laws nowadays, but still it's actually very easy to copy something, 'di ba? Just like for example, when you talk about a book, buying a book is actually quite expensive. It's like 450. Sometimes there are cheap ones, but you can easily find them in the internet, you know. Yeah. So we're enjoying something, but we're not paying anything. Kanang wala bitaw siya ana. So it seems like stealing other people's knowledge or other people's work. Mura siya ingana bitaw kay wala man nato siya gibayaran. So this is becoming a problem, but thankfully na naman tayong mga laws that really protect like the authors, and mga copyright. Diba, even sa cooking, they're actually, sa DTI, they are actually the one protecting trademark and so on. So that's all for my report. And next reporter will follow. Thank you.
Again, good evening, ma'am. To my classmates, good evening. My topic will be the continuation of the discussion of Ms. Adeline Duwat regarding to the issues and challenges in contemporary literature. According to Ms. Adeline Duwat, there are 18 challenges in contemporary literature. And since she already discussed the first three, I will continue the fourth until to the 6 challenges. So let's continue. The number 4 is that means of book promotion, distribution, and retail destabilized. In fact, it is. In a modern world and in our time nowadays, books are seldomly purchased because of the high-end gadgets that we have now. The impact of internet to the new generation had caused a very decisive blow that lets the distribution of books become unstable and even resulted to bankruptcy or failure to those manufacturers. Number 5. Ink on paper manufacturing is an outmoded, toxic industry with steeply rising costs. Because of its low demand, ink on paper manufacturers become a thing of the past. Although there are still remained coping to this business, but the prices have inflated that most of the people cannot afford, which leads to its failures and bankruptcy. Okay, let's go to number 6. Core demographic for printed media is aging faster than the general population. Failure of print and newspapers is disenfranchising young apprentice writers. Yes, it is. Today, printed media is aging faster and outmoded. Because of the internet, more articles, stories, books, and etc. are streamed faster without even thinking it. That caused deprivation of opportunity to those apprentices and aspiring writers. So that concludes my report, and the rest will be continued and tackled by my group mates. Thank you for listening, and again, good evening to you all.
Good day, this is Remark Nuya, and this is the continuation of the report of Miss Adeline Duwat and Mr. Limuela Gahit. And I'm going to discuss the three challenges of contemporary literature. Just three. Number 7, 8, and 9. First, we have media conglomerates have poor business model, economically rationalized, culture industry is actively hostile to vital aspect of human culture. Um, What are media conglomerates? It describes companies that own large numbers of companies in various mass media such as television, radio, publishing, movies, and the internet. Examples are Fox, Comcast, the Walt Disney Company, and yes, those are the biggest media conglomerates or companies in the world. And according to the source from Wire.com, that this line is included as one of the challenges in contemporary literature. And talking about literature, let's focus on the publishing and printing industry. And I think this was referring to the technologies that have been used in making printed materials. The qualities of the technologies are not really commendable, and it's just for business purposes. And I think that is the reason why this is included as one of the challenges in contemporary literature facing today. And number 8, long tail balkanizes audiences, disrupts means of canon building, and fragments literary reputation. Printing devices is no longer used same as before because people can access books online without printing them. And I think inaccessibility and intellectual property system is are failing because we don't need any authorization paper for us to access books, articles, and blogs, and it's all accessible in internet, and that's pretty convenient. And then number 9, digital public domain transforms traditional literary heritage into a huge, cost-free, portable, searchable database, radically transforming the reader's relationship to about literacy. Books are replaced by cell phones, tablets, and electronic devices. That is a convergence culture obliterating the former distinctions between media, books becoming one minor aspect of huge tweet, blog, comics, games, soundtrack, cinema, ancillary merchandise or profane merchandises. But I think I don't consider that as a challenges because that is a convenient for to the students, especially today. We are using a new platform in education. We're using online classes, and we are relying to online, and that is a convenient thing, a convenient way to access any content in social media for us students. Um, Also, if we sum up number 7, 8, and 9, it was referring that barriers to publication entry have crashed, enabling to huge torrent of subliterary and or non-literary textual expression, and also about what I've mentioned earlier that um, intellectual inaccessibility and intellectual property system are failing, and I agree to that because we can access or we can get any information in social media without creating any authorization paper just to inform the author. Just you just have to surf into social media and you can access any information you want. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My topic is a continuation about issues and challenges of contemporary literature. So it is starting from number 10 up to number 12. So the number 10 issue is that contemporary literature not confronting issues of general urgency. Dominant bestsellers are in former niche genres such as fantasy, romances, and teen books. So what are the issues of general urgency? Globalization, worldwide slavery and sweatshop labor, out of control American leadership and exceptionalism. So it seems like contemporary literature is dealing with all of these issues. The issue is the issue is that people aren't reading them because they have bad day in their jobs and want to forget about them by hanging out with something. Everyone loves escapist literature and everyone loves emotional porn. Nachi has become mainstream and the mainstream has become Nachi. So people who love to write and have their work read by someone, by friends and family alone if need be. So the author about something is that they only want their close friends, the close peoples to write or to read their works. So next is number 11. It says that barriers to publication entry have crashed, enabling huge torrent of subliterary or non-literary textual expression. So there were many unique web comics online, a ridiculous amount of output considering how long it takes to produce comics relative to how long it takes to produce a piece of writing, page by page. Of course, it is not really easy to form and connect your ideas as a writer because it really need to be relevant to each and every ideas. That's it. So web comics still have a terrible reputation due to his huge amount of output. But every one of these comics is produced by someone with a talent, with a particular point of view, and with passion. Because of course, not all people can write or can create a web comics. Only to those people who have talent and passion within it, within that particular aspect. So and literally all of those comics were produced by people with little formal training, with crazy ideas about how comics should look and read, and by people who had crushing day jobs that they wanted to escape. It's easier for people to read a comic strip idly at work than reading a novel because of course when we say a comic strip, so it's just a short conversation, not not like a novel wherein you cannot read it in just 1 hour, in just a minute. No? Okay. The next issue is that algorithms and social media replacing work of editors and publishing houses. Network socially generated text replacing individually authored text. So yes, it is very common. Everybody is excited by the idea of network socially generated text. Only some people are interested in reading a novel or a piece of literary works. Mostly, they are more interested in listening by someone who is trying to communicate and edited specific story to them. So it seems like we can give value to the writer or author who hardly work for that particular writings because we are just relying to our friends or to someone who can relay the text to us. Don't know, and not every one of us wanted to read a novel or a writing published by an author. So we are just keep on asking about what happened to that particular story, what happened to that particular event. So we are not able to value the author. No, we are just relying to someone who can give us the information. So that's an about the that's an issue about the issue and challenges about contemporary literature. That's all, and thank you for listening.
Good evening, everyone. This is Noel Bordios, and I am the fifth reporter. And my topic is the continuation of the previous reporter. So, number 13, convergence culture obliterating former distinctions between media, books, becoming one minor aspect of huge tweet, blog, comics, games, soundtrack, television, cinema, ancillary merchandise, pro fan franchises. So it means that this book describes convergence culture. It talks about how computers, cell phones, video game systems, and much all personal electronics are becoming people's all-in-one access points for all the culture and all communication with the external world. This is due to computer hardware allowing for better media viewing and also due to the fast spread of media over the internet. Now people can watch TV and movies, listen to music, blog, tweet, learn new things, and even read books from various all-in-one electronic devices. Next is unstable computer and cell phone interfaces becoming world's primary means of cultural access. Compositor system remake media in their own hybrid Creole image. So this means that so far this has remained true. Technology is moving too fast to be stable at this point. But it's not that we are not exploring stable methods of cultural archiving. I guess technology it has to be arranged in columns to be easily readable, and some people find that computer screens hurt their delicate eyes. Next is scholars stepped within the disciplines becoming cross-linked jack of all trades visual intelligentsia. So this means that many scholars care more about insignificant by their own admission, multidisciplinary literary, cultural, historical criticisms rather than actually reading literary fiction. This is a challenge to literary fiction, which seems like it has to rely on the support of academics. The very words literary fiction imply this. So thank you.
So, the 16th issues and challenges in contemporary literature is academic education system suffering severe bubble inflation. So, severe means malala. So, as a student, pag mahuman ta og senior high or high school, gusto ta mo eskwela og college. But the problem is our financial problem. Labi na nga kita as a student wala kayo tay kaya. Walay kaya atong pamilya. So magduduha ta og pa-enroll sa college. But it's that seem like people will stop going to college. So as a student, we need a college degree to get a white collar job. So as a student, kanang kinahanglan ta nga makahuman og college tungod kay para dali ra ta maka-apply og trabaho, labi na sa kanang mga company nga kasagaran sa mga company is dali ra ta makasulod og trabaho, labi na og college degree ta. Pero dili pud pasabot nga kung college ka makasulod dayon ka og dali-dali sa kana nga work nga gusto nimo. It because our government is grabe ka high standard. So that's why ang uban nato nga mga Pilipino is moadto sa abroad. Moadto sa abroad tungod kay dagko og kwarta didto compare diri sa ato ang country. So 17 is polarizing civil Cold War is harmful to intellect honesty. So this means things like people judging books based on hot political issues such as whether or not they feature Middle Eastern characters, though they come from the canon of the Western white male. So though they alternatively represent female voice. So, on the other hand, this seems like this is not a big challenge. Lame intellectual scenes have existed for hundreds of years and have seen on book for stupid reason. If polarizing civil Cold War causes the public to start caring enough about the certain books to take moral issue with them, it seems like in a good for all of literature. So, on the other hand, if institution like academia or maybe the New York Times Book Review, which are still influential, start judging books on the basis of whether or not they feature Muslims or something, these institutions just stop reviewing books that are not them politically significant. For example, literature would suffer. So the last issues and challenges in contemporary literature is the Gothic faith or porcelain poetry is the specter at this dwindling fest. So literary fiction is much more ambitious in its aim than lyric poetry. So the aim of a lyric poem is to convey just one image or idea or emotion. So the aim of literary fiction is to tell complex story that weaves in a bunch of different sheets. So lyric poetry used to thrive on formal restriction. Then formal restriction became unfashionable. Again, probably people stopped feeling like they had time for frivolous things like matter. So, the traditional form of poetry began to seem irrelevant and they were not really replaced by anything lasting and new unless you are count the form of popular music. So that was when lyric poetry stopped being popular. So without formal restriction, there was suddenly just not much substance to lyric poetry. So the aim of lyric poetry is to convey just one image or idea or emotion.